Yes. What do you mean? Yeah. You got the marks. 180. Yeah. I did not. You did not give one look here. I'm not leaving here. Paper leading. Pollination we're attending a lecture for the first time. Same school, with you, in class. Unfortunate. So, exam is not so many mistakes. You are making. Not very happy. Better. कहाँ पे क्या marks? वीडियो था ना उसमें लास्ट क्वेश्चन था ना उसमें 4 डायग्राम्स दिए थे आइडेंटिफिकेशन करना था और उसके ऊपर क्वेश्चंस थे ना वो आइडेंटिफिकेशन गलत हुआ मैम अब फिर भी मतलब डायग्राम में आरबीसी क्या था इसको डब्ल्यूबीसी था मैम फिर वेरिएशन करके हां वो समझाएगी मैंने हमको हर एक को चीज ना हां diagram based questions आते हैं identification but the diagram will be not based second question था ना सेक्शन का उसमें फ्लावर दिया था फ्लावर एक एकदम से ब्लड था वो ब्लैक था कि फ्लावर को समझ नहीं आ रहा हां वही तो फ्लावर एक पेटल कर दिया and there are questions set up questions you did not get any clue no I'm समझ what's the function to start का लेकिन ना वो पेटल का वो फंक्शन है ना पर जो ब्लैक हाउस को ब्लैक टू वाइट को चला हां तो पूरा ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट ही नहीं आता पूरा ब्लैक ही वाइट ही था फिर और एक पैराग्राफ में फिर एक वो स्ट्राइडर मतलब ना so the next exam let me tell you in your school exams you are not expecting any diagram which will be a color green black and white ही रहेगा black ही रहेगा सारा that will be 80% black so printer में सालों साल ऐसा भी students are coming you have to identify the set of the questions in case you have a confusion जैसे ऐसे कभी printer में black के फ्लावर है क्या है clarify from the set of the questions because just एक flower identification के लिए कभी नहीं आएगा सही है ना दो-तीन बार पढ़ के निकलने समझ में नहीं आएगा ऐसे तो कहना पेट्रोल लेके पेट्रोल का पास नहीं दिया प्रोडक्ट का कार एंड पूरा जो आप से anyway clarify with your teacher ऐसे का डायग्राम बिल्कुल नहीं समझ में आया चार्जेस आज और क्लियर डायग्राम क्योंकि आपकी बात टीचर के पास तो रहता है ना ये कम टीचर को कम टीचर को डिपेंड करता है ज्यादातर since we have passed this for years ज्यादातर जब सेशन पेपर ऐसे कंफ्यूजिंग रहते हैं सेशन डायग्राम बहुत कुछ सेट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस और सेट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस के काम का तुमको क्लियर समझ में आ जाएगा इट इज नॉट अ क्लास इसको पता है ना वो क्वेश्चन में ऐसे दिया था नेबर करना था तो फंक्शन लिखना था तो ये पैराग्राफ पास यस ना इन दैट वन क्वेश्चन फॉर 10 मार्क्स अबे 10 मार्क्स पूरा क्वेश्चन नहीं डायग्राम का वो वाले जो 5 मार्क का होगा दूसरा काम में क्या मार्क दूसरा डायग्राम हां वो डायग्राम का गिवन पैरेंट मार्क्स को 4 चैनल डब्ल्यू के चार्ज पर सही आइडेंटिफाई कर हां वो जरूर आइडेंटिफाई इन सेक्शन में पढ़ना है क्या उसको आर्टिस्ट लिखा ना I told you not probably this article but में तो नहीं समझ में आया हां it was it showed it was minor
white one भी चाहिए गोरी था वो देखे अब मैं हाँ कि चलो आरबीसी है and after that we got to know
मैम हर क्वेश्चन में डालो
कुछ डाला है कि नहीं
देखो पेपर तो मैं वो कर सकती हूँ
तो इतना कैसा नहीं दिखी
if you stop can I talk
yes
now if it is a single round cell do not you check the nucleus inside the nucleus है कि जिसमें
the diagram was only not clear
मैम every question has a diagram वो हर क्वेश्चन में ब्लैक था मैम सेक्शन ये करेक्ट मिला सेक्शन बी में तो नेक्स्ट टाइम फॉर दो डायग्राम बेस्ड टेस्ट इन दो बार टीचर से क्लैरिफाई करो इफ यू आर रियली हैविंग अ डाउट क्लैरिफाई करो कि डायग्राम क्लियरली नहीं समझ में आ रहा है देन दे विल शो यू द ओरिजिनल पेपर जो यहां पे दिया हुआ है वी डू इट इंटरेस्टिंग the students are not able to understand speak to the correct diagram we are not going to give any hints about the question or the diagram but if a diagram is clear they will show how it's clearly answer correct so take care next step but again I repeat 60 on 80 is not very good mark now you need now see the test program 3 chapters 2 chapters 3 5 chapters
objective identify that
क्या चैप्टर कौन कैसे करोगे जब हम 12 chapters also basically 3 chapters I have 3 chapters में से टेस्ट हुआ and you are having an error of 20 marks too big an error 20 marks का error is too big an error इससे बहुत कम होनी चाहिए तो नेक्स्ट टेस्ट में अभी क्या करना है you have to set it target भी नेक्स्ट टेस्ट 40 marks का होने वाला 80 का और now chapters will be something around 5-6 तो होगा नहीं in a section of 6 chapters 80 mark का टेस्ट में error again you should try level best error 10 marks से ज्यादा होगा ही नहीं
इसमें भी लगा 70 तक आ जाएगा लेकिन तो पता ही कर डायग्राम में करोगे
हां वो तुमको you have to clarify and write टीचर से clarify करके लिखो so now let us start with the next chapter that is pollination fertilization we have already done with now we will start with pollination fertilization it has a very good direction. Next, के पास हमारे पास है इसको बता आगे वाले कौन मिलेगा से मेरे सिक्स ना दे देंगे the first part of the chapter that we start is pollination. What is the definition of this word pollination? Pollination, the definition is transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stem. The process of pollination can have different types. But I'm not sure. Process of transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. So now that we talk about the process of transfer of the pollen grains, take a note of the definition. Transfer of the pollen grains. I'm going to give you enough written work in that case. I'm going to ask you enough oral questions. सुनो अच्छी तरह से हाँ बेटा हमारा भाई आया कि नहीं क्लास ठीक एक ही बार में नहीं रहते हो so now when we are talking about the definition is very clear no? What is pollination now let's learn that if this is one plant and this is one flower this is another flower this is another plant this is one flower this is another flower. What are we going to understand by the different methods of pollination? If the process of pollination, online hai, if you will talk about the different processes of pollination, if the process of transfer of the pollen grain from the anther to the stigma is happening within the same plant, this is what we are going to talk about as autogamy. What is autogamy?
transfer of pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of the same plant of this same plant. If I'm talking about the transfer of the pollen grain is happening from the anther of one flower to the stigma of the other flower. This is what is called heterogamy. But यहाँ पे ये दोनों में क्या कॉमन है कौन बताए?
Same plant.
Same plant. We are talking about the same plant. So as long as we are talking about the same plant, this is what is self-pollination. As long as we are talking about the same plant, we are talking about self-pollination. So cross-pollination कैसे होगा? Cross-pollination would be when we are talking about the transfer of pollen grain from the anther to the stigma and two flowers are involved. Process of transfer of the pollen grains from the anther of one flower to the stigma of the other flower of another plant. That is what is known as allogamy. This is what is known as allogamy. Allogamy. So now we are talking about here. Two plants are involved, different plants are involved, and if different plants are involved, what do we say? Cross pollination. So सबसे पहले ये समझना बहुत जरूरी है. What I'm talking about the difference between self and cross. Self and cross का basic difference क्या है? If you are talking about the process of pollination within the same plants,
different flowers in the same.
Pollination and different plants.
जितना ज़्यादा सुनोगे और कम बोलोगे बहुत सक्सेसफुल होगी. समझो पहले समझो. So when we are talking about autogamy, now get acquainted with all the three terms, correct? Spellings: autogamy, heterogamy, allogamy. There is one more type, xenogamy. We are not talking about spelling. So we are talking about these three types only. Autogamy, heterogamy. What is common? We are talking about the same plant. This is happening within the same plant. Or autogamy, heterogamy, or allogamy. Or if I say autogamy or allogamy, में क्या difference है? Process is happening between two plants. तो ये हो गया basic difference between self and cross pollination. Now, next let's try understanding that when can self pollination happen? ये तो पहले ये concept था कि the process of self pollination means what, cross pollination means what. Now we try to understand that self pollination will happen when. When will self pollination happen? Under what different conditions self pollination will happen? Let us talk about certain conditions. First है unisexuality. Now already you have studied about the characteristics of flower. Do you understand? Do you still remember what is the meaning of a hermaphrodite flower? Yeah, example? Hibiscus. एक और example? तुम्हारा स्माइल बहुत स्वीट है, पर स्माइल से कुछ मतलब नहीं है मुझे. मैंने अभी तक मार्क्स नहीं बताया.
नाम मिला ही नहीं.
अच्छा, ऐसे कैसे तुम्हारा पेपर टीचर ने छिपा के रखा?
नाम मिला ही नहीं.
ठीक है, मिला नहीं उसको पेपर.
मेरे को मिला ही नहीं तो हमारी टीचर भी आ रहे थे. हम मार्क्स नहीं दे रहे.
मेरे भी 500 से वापस से निकाल के गारंटी दे रहे हैं उसको. लिखोगे तो तुम मार्क्स देगी ना. So now that you talk about unisexuality, what's the meaning of unisexuality? A flower which has female reproductive organs. A flower which has only female reproductive organs. A flower which has only male reproductive organs. Now, which are the two types of flower that way? Standard and standard. What's the meaning of a standard? A flower which has only stamens. Pistillate, a flower which has only pistils. Other name for pistil is carpods. Okay. So now that I'm talking about self-pollination, under what different conditions self-pollination hoga? Number one, unisexuality. Yes or no? When we are talking about under what different conditions, when can when will self-pollination occur? So unisexuality will generally not favor. So I'm talking bisexuality. Unisexuality will not favor answer. So first of all, we are talking about bisexual flowers. P is one. We talk about hibiscus is another. In all these flowers, what is the common feature? The common feature is bisexuality is a feature. A flower already has both the carpel also well developed, the stamen also well developed. Then the process of self-pollination is sure to happen. And just we were talking about that if it is a unisexual flower, obviously the process of cross-pollination, the flower has to depend on. So if I talk about examples like the papaya, if I talk about examples like the palm, which are unisexual flowers, just the contrast of this, then do self-pollination happen? No, self-pollination does not happen. Next is we talk about homogamy. Let us now try understanding this. Homogamy. What is homogamy? Homogamy means the type of gametes more or less developed at the same time. The type of gametes should be more or less of the same type. Homo or hetero, two types. No, when we are talking about if the gametes that the male part of the plant produces, the female part of the plant produces, if they don't have any similarity, then the process of self-pollination cannot happen. Then they have to very much depend on cross-pollination. Let us take some examples. Homogamy, when we are talking about homogamy, if I give you examples again of hibiscus here, let us talk about examples of hibiscus. Here we are saying that hibiscus is a type of a flower where the process of self-pollination very much happens. So it is bisexual and at the same time it is a homogamous flower. Then what is the most important meaning of this word homogamous? Matlab, the anther and the carpel, mature at the same time. The anther and the carpel mature at the same time. But is it necessary that every bisexual flower is showing the process of self-pollination? Nahi. We come across many bisexual flowers, even though they have got the anther and the stigma, but still they may undergo the process of cross-pollination. They may depend on the process of cross-pollination only because the anther and the carpel are not maturing at the same time. By the time the anther has already flourished, the stigma is not ready to receive the pollen. The anther is not well planned and well developed. Enough amount of pollen grains have not been formed, but the stigma is drying up. It has already matured long time back. So the pollen ready and releasing from the pollen sac and the stigma ready for the process of accepting the pollen, both these things should happen at the same time. Then
flowers die.
Which flowers?
Such flowers die.
Yeah, those flowers are not giving rise to any well-developed seed or fruit because fertilization नहीं हो पाएगा या तो cross-pollination होगा. हाँ, cross-pollination हो सकता है. When we talk about certain examples, we'll come across later. There are many such plants. Where even though they are bisexual, the process of self-pollination may not happen. So first is we have been talking about bisexuality. Second is homogamy. Next is we now talk about some advantages, disadvantages of self and cross-pollination. Now from this part of the chapter, which are simple points to understand, but you will get enough give reason type of questions. Okay, give reason sort of questions again. So first of all, we are going to understand some advantages. So here, these are the two main points. An extension of this, we are going to again study in the later part. So, सबसे पहले ये, you get questions. Write two most important conditions of flowers which allow the process of self-pollination. Two conditions of flowers which allow the process of self-pollination. Bisexuality is one condition always to understand. Homogamy is another condition to understand. Huh? Cleistogamy is a different type. It's a condition. It's a type of a pollination where the flower, even when they are mature, they don't bloom. and the flowers are close to the ground.
Types.
It is
One of the types of
Yes.
one of the conditions for
self-pollination. Extrogamy is of course a condition for self-pollination. So when we are talking about these two major, bisexuality is one, homogamy is another. If you want to understand about the concept of Christogamy, that is also there. Christogamy, these are exceptionally certain type of flowers, small flowers, very close to the ground. The plants are very short-heighted, mature flowers, but they never open up. If they never open up, is there any characteristic of cross-pollination? Never. So obviously, this type of plants which show this method of growth, of course, favor self-pollination. Now, if this is what we understand, let us try to find out the comparative accounts of self and cross-pollination in terms of their advantages and disadvantages. So we were talking about self-pollination. Let us learn what are some of the advantages of self-pollination. Advantages. Here, at least 3 to 5 points you are supposed to understand. Let us talk about the first advantage of self-pollination. The first advantage of self-pollination, the parental characters. The parental characters are maintained in generations of plants. In generations of plants. So one is this. When we are talking about what are the advantages? Advantages is, what are some of the advantages we understand? Self-pollination, parental characters. What is the meaning of this? Parental characters. I understand a type of a fruit. This particular fruit has a high amount of nutrient in it. So that's a character. And if this particular fruit which gives rise to flowers undergo the process of self-pollination, it is the characteristic of the same plant which is constantly getting repeated generation after generation. So that is what we are talking about. The parental characters are maintained. But the moment I talk about cross-pollination, there is a concept of mixing of the characters of two plants. So I talk about 2 varieties of mango. I talk about 2 varieties of pear. I talk about 2 varieties of apples. I talk about 2 varieties of roses. In these 2 varieties, the moment you talk about the process of cross-pollination, new varieties will every time develop. I talk about a variety of rice. I talk about a variety of gram. I understand the method of self-pollination happening for years. What is happening? The quality of the rice and the gram and the fruit and the seed flow is maintained generation after generation. So if I talk about the concept of self-pollination, parental characters remain well maintained. तो ये process self-pollination कब ज़्यादातर किया जाता है? If a good variety of seed, crop, vegetable का quality, nutrient content, environmental factors का resistance अगर maintain करना है तो what is the next we talk about? No wastage of pollen. No wastage of pollen. What is the meaning of this? No wastage of pollen. A flower which is undergoing the process of self-pollination did not produce, or if I say the other way, a bisexual flower actually did not produce a large number of pollen. So अगर flower ज़्यादा pollen बनाता भी है तो problem क्या है? Because in the process of making the pollen, so much of energy and nutrient of the plant of the flower is getting used up. But इतना सारा pollen बनाने के बाद भी, if the pollen majority of them is getting wasted, it's a loss of nutrient for the plants, no? So if it is a process of pollination, जो self-pollination वाला flower है, मतलब commonly the bisexual flowers. तो bisexual flowers में ज़्यादातर pollen कम बनता है. The amount of the pollen produced in a flower which is destined to show self-pollination, वैसे भी number of pollen, amount of the pollen is comparatively lesser. क्यों? क्योंकि within the plant वही anther से थोड़ा सा distance में pollen जाके गिरना है. So the small amount of pollen also can do the job. But if I talk about a unisexual flower, the amount of the pollen formed is much more. Because this flower is generally not destined to show the process of self-pollination, and the pollen has to be carried by wind, carried by water, carried by agents. Has to be carried by agents. So in the case of self-pollination, there is no wastage of pollen. What is the other one? The flowers need not be showy. The flowers need not be showy. Need not be showy or attractive. No production of scent or nectar needed. No production of scent or nectar is needed. A flower which is constantly producing the scent and the nectar, again, is utilizing so much of nutrients, no, in the production of all these nectaries. You have studied, no, nectaries. Nectaries कहाँ पे रहता है? Huh?
At the base of the fistula, base of.
At the base of or from the thalamus grow करता है as tubes, where the plant cells are constantly producing that watery secretion. जिसको हम nectar बोलते हैं. So now that we are talking about the nectaries and scent, what is the meaning of scent? Certain flowers have got strong fragrance. Certain flowers don't. No? If I talk about certain flowers like the hibiscus, do they have a strong fragrance? No, they do. Can you name a flower which has got a strong fragrance? Rose. And the nightshade. Jasmine, some varieties of jasmine. So they have got a strong fragrance. The fragrance कैसे बनेगा? Certain special chemical substances has to be prepared. So for that also essential ingredients have to be used now. But if the flower is destined to go by the process of self-pollination, तो ये सारी चीज की जरूरत नहीं है. So what is some of the advantage that we are talking about? Flowers need not be showy, production of nectar जरूरत नहीं है, wastage of pollen नहीं होता है. Parallel we have to also look into. Now तो self-pollination में इतने सारे तो advantages है, disadvantages हो सकता है कोई? Can you think of one? क्या हो सकता है? Disadvantage क्या हो सकता है? Disadvantages क्या हो सकता है?
पैरेंटल प्लांट स्पीच जो रहता है कोई पैरेंट का किसी उनका अगर वो
जो एक अनडिजायरेबल कैरेक्टरिस्टिक होती है प्लांट में, वो रिमूव होना बहुत डिफिकल्ट हो जाता है. I talk about a particular type of a plant. I talk about a particular type of a plant. Now there are various different types of plants, especially when we talk about certain crops, grains. I will talk about the rice and the wheat, all these varieties. The rice and the wheat and the maize, all these seeds and grains that I understand. Or variety of fruits. Kafi बार we get to see that in this variety of plants, there are certain type of factors on which the growth depends. Something like a very simple concept to understand. कि ये वाले जो plants है, now that they have started the process of growth, the farmer has started sowing the seeds maybe in the month of November, December. Since for that talk about mangoes, the farmer has started using those seeds by the month of November, December. But when are those harvest period? April, March, April. So ये जो पूरा 6 months का time है, the plant should grow healthy. But काफी बार ऐसा होता है, when in the month of December, unseasonal rains हो गया, plants are all dying out. The young plants are all dying out. Sometimes there is a strong storm. The flowers all fall down. Sometimes irrigation जो होता है land में, if the water is too much, at times excessive irrigation हो गया, certain plants cannot tolerate the excess amount of water and the roots start getting rotten. So काफी सारे plants हैं, those are sensitive to those environmental factors. थोड़ा सा भी water ज़्यादा हो गया, salinity meaning the salt concentration in the water of the soil. So salinity थोड़ा सा भी ज़्यादा हो गया, the roots start getting rotten. So काफी सारे plants हैं which are sensitive to all these factors. थोड़ा सा water ज़्यादा, temperature थोड़ा ज़्यादा, unseasonal rains. But if a particular plant has these factors as resistance. Resistance मतलब I understand one rice variety जिसमें थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा भी अगर water हो जाएगा not a problem, the plant survives. थोड़ा सा rainfall ज़्यादा भी हो जाएगा then also the plant can survive. The plant can survive from pest infection. उसको हम बोलेंगे the plant is resistant to so many factors. So let me understand that there is a variety of rice which is resistant to all these factors. Obviously, self pollination से हम इसको बढ़ा सकते हैं. But I understand about the variety of bean which is very fast affected by little bit more water, salinity. There is a variety of bean जो pest फटाफट pest लग जाता है उसको. Pest means worms on the plants. There are certain types of plants which easily get infected by worms. So I understand there is a particular variety of bean उसको grow करना बहुत difficult है. क्योंकि एक आध month जाते ही the plant starts getting infected by the pest. So this is a variety the farmers would never want. ये वाला variety farmers को नहीं चाहिए. This particular characteristic the farmers does not want. So it is very difficult to remove this particular variety. क्योंकि इसको cross pollination से ही इसको हम remove कर सकते हैं. So what are we going to write here? Disadvantage क्या है? What is the disadvantage? Undesirable characteristics को remove करना very difficult हो जाता है. So whenever we are writing down the disadvantages, removal of undesirable characteristics, removal of undesirable characteristics, removal of undesirable characteristics is difficult. By the process of self pollination almost impossible. नहीं हो सकता. Then next is disadvantages results in weakening of the variety, weakening of any variety of a plant, weakening of the variety results in weakening, loss of vigor, results in weakening. We talk about this. And the third is very simple to understand, does not produce new varieties. Cannot produce, of course, new varieties. Now, what is the meaning of this second point that we have written down here? Second point, what did we write? Results in weakening of any variety of a plant. Weakening. What is the meaning of weakening here? A particular plant which is constantly undergoing the process of self-pollination. वही similar characteristics repeat हो रहा है. Nothing new is happening in that plant. वही same type of flower, वही same type of seed, वही same type of leaf. Slowly, this particular type of a plant जिसमें कोई changes ही हो नहीं रहा है, but the environmental factors are changing, no? Environmental factors are changing. So this plant, after a particular period of time, cannot adjust with the changing environmental conditions, and it is considered to be a sensitive variety, a weaker variety. It is considered to be a weaker variety because it is not able to adjust with the environmental conditions. Same like human. We human also, as compared, now the environmental conditions are changing around us. The environmental conditions are changing around us. We are able to adapt with the environmental changes much better than our previous generations. We had been born in an environment where pollution itna tha. Our next generation, yes, they will be born in an environment with a lot of pollution, but still we are functioning. But our previous generations are finding it so difficult to adjust with the changes. So same is happening for the plants. Wohi characteristic, wohi same genes, wohi same chemicals, but the environmental factors change raha hai. So they find it difficult to adjust with the environmental conditions. Take one question here. Give reason. Number one, self-pollinating flowers need not be showy. Self-pollinating flowers need not be showy and scent producing. Need not be showy and scent producing. Full stop. Leave 2 lines for your answer. Go to the next question. Self-pollination cannot give rise to new varieties. Self-pollination cannot give rise to new varieties. I'll give you 2-3 minutes only to think and write an answer. After that, I'm going to discuss this answer. Whatever. Just now we discuss. There you go. Those sentences will
Cannot give rise to.
new varieties. Give reason in just one sentence or at the most 2 sentences. इससे ज़्यादा कुछ explanation नहीं लिखना है. ठीक. Answer should be very appropriate. Using of specific key terms. Use as much as key terms possible from the chapter. General sentences नहीं लिखने हैं. See that you are writing a proper explanation, but in short. So क्या लिख सकते हो? श्रेया लिखो लिखो लिखो. Okay, not to write so long. Not gonna write it. No number क्या लिखना है? First answer. You guys know क्या लिखा? What is the first question I gave you? I think I gave you on this. No, I gave you on this point. First reason I gave you, self-pollinating plants are not showy and scent-producing. क्या लिखा विधान?
Nectary.
मैंने तुम्हारा नाम पूछा, तुम पड़ोसी का नाम बोलोगे? What's your name? Nilesh. बोलो.
They need not attract insects for the transportation of pollen grain. So as the pollination is done in the same plant.
Within the same plant. Within the same plant. Within the same plant. Very correct. So what are you writing? Exactly the same thing that you have to write. Language can be different. Science may grammar language give me. Often you may not take that stress. But ultimately, what I have to write on this first answer? They need not be showy and scent producing because they don't have to attract agents. They don't have to attract agents, and the pollination will happen within the same plant. Because of if you black forest बना रहे हैं यहाँ पे, so obviously the teacher will get angry on this. हाँ? देखा नाना बच्चों? से पानी पी लो.
Self-pollination does not support, does not give new variety. Self-pollination does not give new variety because all the relations are the same chromosomes. So, that's why.
नहीं chromosomes का यहाँ कोई reference
I'm changing environment.
नहीं.
Self-pollination cannot give rise to new varieties and the breeding of environment.
हम वही तो बोल
हाँ तो सेल्फ पॉलिनेशन में न्यू वैरायटी क्यों नहीं बनता? व्हाट डिड आई टेल यू? सेंटेंस में ये बोला था. राही का ना? हाँ ओके हाँ बोलो. नो
And characteristics preventing the plants.
no, I'm just not it. Self-pollination does not give rise to new variety. Q, because the process of pollination involves characteristics of the same plant, and mixing of characteristics does not take place. So that's the main sentence that is right. Right on the first sentence. Self-pollination does not give rise to new variety because mixing of characteristics of two parents or two plants, mixing of characteristics of two plants does not take place. Mixing of characteristics of two plants does not take place. Mixing of characteristics of two plants does not take place. So remember, this is also called human. When we are talking about human, say suppose I talk about the parents are from absolutely two different regions. The children are more resistant to all the environmental conditions. Even in human diets, And when the parents are of the similar type of, similar region, similar language, or similar characteristics, the children happen to be a little bit less resistant for a sensitive movement. Plants are also the same. Now let us talk about cross-pollination. So cross-pollination definition, you know. What is the definition of cross-pollination? Transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. Two different flowers of two different plants. Advantages. Parental character. Okay, we are not talking about the parental characters right here now. Advantages, if I talk about cross-pollination. Advantages, what is the advantages of cross-pollination thing? What can be the advantages of cross-pollination? सबसे ज़्यादा जो advantages है, that is new varieties are formed. New varieties of plants can be formed. Yes, that's the most important advantage. That's the most important advantage. New varieties of plants are formed. What next? What next? The seeds produced are abundant and viable for a long time. Third is plants produced by this method are more healthier. Plants produced by this method are more healthier. Yes or no? Understand? You can write all these points on your own also. ये तो सबसे important point है जो हमेशा याद रखना है. If it is a concept of cross pollination, तो new varieties तो बनना ही है. New varieties will always be formed. Seeds produced are always abundant. Seeds produced abundant. क्यों? Seeds produced वैसे. Seeds produced by the process of self pollination or cross pollination is abundant because ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा pollen, ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा chances of fertilization. Fertilization means production of seeds and fruit. And plants produce are more healthier. यहाँ पे भी again we are talking about the mixing of characteristics. जैसे मैंने अभी just पहले बोला था. The moment you talk about the mixing of the characteristics, the product formed always is resistant. Now I have been talking about the resistance of all these. No, I said a plant. कैसे हम बोलेंगे that the plant is healthy? कैसे समझ में आएगा? Plant is healthy कैसे समझ में आएगा? The plant is not easily affected by the pests and pathogens. Plant is not easily affected by the temperature, rainfall. Plant is not easily affected by the water content of the soil, salinity of the soil. या तो थोड़ा सा अगर वाटर कम भी है, immediately the plant will not die out. But कुछ plants immediately they start getting dry. Disadvantages लिखेंगे. What is about the disadvantages now? I want 3 disadvantages that you are going to tell me. काफी सारा we have been discussing about this one. बोलो. Tell me the disadvantages. What do you think will be the disadvantages of this method? Wastage of pollen grain. बुक नहीं देखना है. Wastage of pollen grain. और क्या? Disadvantage. Wastage of pollen grain. और क्या? Disadvantage. Cross pollination का disadvantage. हाँ? Wastage of pollen grain. ये भी है. Wastage of nutrients for scent production, nectar production, and making the flower showy. And making the flower showy, conspicuous. Third, और क्या हो सकता है disadvantage of cross pollination? और क्या हो सकता है? For making the flower conspicuous, मतलब एक जो cross pollinating flowers are basically flowers which are big and showy and attractive. Making it visible, clear, no, remarkable. एक और disadvantage क्या होगा? Wastage of coal. हाँ तो ये तो हमने second point में सारा include किया है. एक और बोलो.
जब दो प्लांट रहते हैं ना, दो एक प्लांट से जब अनडिजायरेबल कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स आता है,
हाँ वो भी आ सकता है. हाँ, undesirable character. Now we are talking about development of the new variety. So the process is, the process is not certain. The process is not certain. Very good, Shreya. Process is not certain. मतलब whenever we are talking about ये जो agent पे depend होता है ना ये process. Say suppose you are in your own house. You know how to do your studies well. You know how to cook your food. You know how to wash your clothes. Everything you more or less you are well versed. You don't have to depend on other XYZ to come and get your work done. But if you're dependent, if you are not able to iron your clothes, also you're always waiting for somebody to do it. You are not able to get your food and eat, somebody to do it. So it's difficult, no? So same like that. Cross pollination may always there's the involvement of an agent. वो agent sufficient involved होगा, then only the process of pollination is flourishing. नहीं तो नहीं होगा. Right. If the process of pollination is not happening, then the flower is a waste. Flower is a waste. One question again there. Before one question. Process of cross-pollination is not a certain process or is not certain. Process of cross-pollination is not certain. Two sentences में ही लिखना है. What I explained it just now. Again, listen. क्या लिखोगे? Process of cross-pollination is not certain. Give reason. क्या लिखना है? Cross-pollination is completely dependent on agents. To carry the pollen grain from the anther to the stigma. Only this much. करेक्ट स्पेलिंग्स लिखना है. What are we going to learn now? Based on the agents, how can we name the process and the flower? First, we start with wind. Wind, a type of a agent, no? Wind is an agent. If wind is allowing the process of pollination to happen, then what we call this type of pollination as anemophily. Flower will be termed as anemophilous plant or the flower. Flower या तो plant भी हो सकता है. The flower of the plant. What will you call that? What will you name these plants such as maize as? Maize is an anemophilous plant. Example. Next is we talk about insects. Insects. We talk about insects. Insects is suppose insect if it is insect as the agent. Process is entomophily. Flower is known as entomophilous. Entomophilous. Example. Next, third is water as an agent. What is hydrophily? Flower or plant. Hydrophilus. Example. Lotus also. Water lily is there, hyacinth is there. The mangroves also to some extent mangroves. Lotus no. Lotus is no, lotus also requires when we are talking about some varieties of lotus which are close to the, there are certain type of lotus which are growing quite above the water. That is partly insect pollinated. There are some which are almost on the level of the water. So they are where the pollen has to fall on the water. The pollen will fall and come in contact with the main flower. Water lily, hyacinth. Now we talk about the forbs. Birds. Process. Ornithophily. Flower. Ornithophilus. Birds pollination will be basically carried out in bigger plants. Okay, bigger flowers. Fifth is elephants. Elephophily. Elephophilus. Rafflesia. Cattle also, for so many different type of crops. Cattle also, cattle. Because as these animals, not say these are animals which have got profuse hair, body hair, lashing tail, and these are plants which are big plants. These are plants which are big. As the animal is grazing, the body hair is the pollen on that. And when they grazing, they're crushing on the pollen on the other plants. And that same thing is for even for cattle. Cattle. So first of all, this you have to remember when we are talking about different examples. So there are some other types also. We have to talk about only this type as per your syllabus. So remember, with pollination, what is it? Anemophily. You have to remember that. सबसे पहले ये so you have to get acquainted. Agent के साथ, what is the process for? When if wind is the agent and the process of pollination is anemophily. Insect the agent, entomophily. What are the agent? Hydrophily. Birds the agent. Ornithophily. Elephants the agents. Elephophily. Clear? With at least one or two examples in each of these cases, you have to remember. One or two examples you have to remember. Now, before we move on to the types and characteristics of these type of plants, let us also look into some characteristics of flowers that favor cross-pollination. So here hold your basic summary of what type of agents which allow the process of pollination. Now we have to come across characteristics of flowers which favor Cross pollination. What did we learn? Characteristics of flowers which allow self pollination. What are the characteristics of flowers which allow self pollination? ये किसका उसका water लेना, तुम्हारा water निकालो, हाँ, फिर वो डिहाइड्रेटेड हो जाएगा तो, हाँ,
Water है.
अपना वाटर निकालने में भी उसको एनर्जी वेस्ट नहीं करना है.
HCI तो नॉर्मल करते हैं उससे.
हाँ, फिर भी मेरा पानी मत पियो.
मुझे भी मालूम नहीं.
वही तो.
है.
What are the characteristics which favor the process of self pollination? What are the two characteristics we had learned which favor the process of self pollination?
Self-pollination. Homogeneity and bisexuality.
Bisexual. We are going to learn now characteristics which favor the process of cross pollination. Characteristics which favor the process of cross pollination. So this is also known as the contrivances. Yeah, nature favors cross pollination. Nature favors cross pollination. Now, why the topic named this way? Because whenever we talk about the process of self and cross pollination, ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा plants and flowers show the method of cross pollination. That's why. Majority of the flowers and the plants show the method of cross pollination. So let us learn now what are some of those characteristics, features. First step, when we are talking about the process of cross pollination, again we are talking about cross pollination. So the first point that obviously that we have to bring into our notice is unisexuality. Obviously, plant अगर unisexual है तो self pollination का तो कोई सवाल ही नहीं है. A plant is, a flower is unisexual. Either staminate है या तो cistillate है. तो क्या self pollination हो सकता है? कभी नहीं. So here we are trying to understand that there are so many types of plants which are giving rise to either male flowers or female flowers, unisexual flowers. Then obviously the characteristics of cross pollination has to happen. When I talk about the concept of unisexual flowers, again, एक example याद रखना है. I already gave you some examples. Unisexual plants, unisexual flowers. Do you remember the difference between these words when I say a plant which gives rise to separate male and female flowers? A plant which in the same plant, separate male and female flowers are there. I'm talking about this. A plant है जिसमें these are the male flowers, these are the female flowers. और एक और तरह की प्लांट है जिसमें these are all female flowers and this way these are all male flowers. Do you know the names of this?
Monoecious.
Homoecious. ये homoecious कहाँ से आया?
Monoecious, dioecious.
हाँ, उसका मोनो सुन के तुम्हारे पास आता है तो वो होमो बन गया. When I talk about a plant which has got male and female flowers both, what type of plant?
Monoecious.
Monodifer.
क्या बोल रहे? मेरे क्लास के बाद तुम उसको ना एक और घंटा ट्यूशन लिया करो. तुम्हारे भाषा ज्यादा अच्छा समझेंगे. Take a note of this when we are talking about these two words, monoecious. Can a flower be monoecious? A plant can be monoecious. Can a flower be dioecious? Plant. Can a plant be unisexual?
Yes.
Flower. A flower is unisexual. A plant cannot be unisexual. Usme we will use these words, monoecious and dioecious. A plant which is having male and female flowers separately, मतलब separate plants में male है, separate dioecious. एक ही plant में male भी है, female भी है, monoecious. So plants के लिए we use the word monoecious, dioecious, and flowers के लिए we use the word unisexual, bisexual. Okay. You can see this. Okay, it's not different. Yeah, Hi, what are you glad? नीचे नहीं देखा मैंने बुक किया सब
अभी इक्वालिटी का खत्म हो जाएगा
मिले 15 भाई एग्जाम पर नहीं वो बहुत
अरे हम लोग बोल रहे हैं
Fertilisation और flower पढ़ा मैंने Fertilisation किया तुमने भाई
Fertilisation तो ऑनलाइन था
कौन कर रहा है तो एवरी वीक फैमिली स्कूल में अबे तो रिजल्ट करने वाला है नाम में इधर सिखा रहा है Fertilisation आने वाला राष्ट्रीय Fertilisation
लेकिन अगर एवरेज पढ़ने वाला कंपैरिजन भी हो नहीं पढ़ने का पड़ेगा कौन ही पढ़ेगा
ये कौन सी लेता है वॉल्यूम 4 है ये अरे वही तो
आगे रखा मतलब क्या फिर वॉल्यूम को खोला नहीं इसकी पूरी पूरी हालत खराब है
ये देख
भाई मेरा खराब हो गया इधर से ऊपर से
भाई
ये भाई ये तो ठीक है तो इधर से स्टार्ट करा जो
भाई ये बिल्कुल नहीं हां तो देखना पड़ेगा
भाई मैं
नहीं होगा इसीलिए मैं बोल रहा हूँ सूरज को जब फ्लावर पढ़ने
मैंने 12 किया भी एक
फ्लावर का होता ही रहता है
और मैं तो बोल तो इतना नहीं मेरे को दिल ज्यादा आएगा नहीं मैं ना कुछ नहीं करूंगा कॉन्फिडेंस है भाई
भाई सामने रहती एक इधर कोच में उधर कोच में इधर सामने के पीछे बैठेगा बस
वो वाला वाले की नेटवर्क थोड़ा अच्छा आता है लेकिन फिर भी भाई सामना अपना नहीं
कोई एग्जाम लेट अटेम्प्ट किया तो फायदा नहीं रहता कोई
भाई
पर माइनस से
भाई वो पीछे बैठ गया लास्ट
ठीक है ना
नहीं
तो आगे में
और
अच्छा मेरे पास कोई बहुत होता है लेकिन क्या करने के लिए जाने के लिए कुछ है
फिर और कितने इस बस
चलता सही
क्या नहीं मैं आज नहीं चाहिए
इसलिए मैंने और
तो 4 मिनट के करते
चला जाते कवर में खा के
अच्छी दिन के बाद क्यों
राइस भी खाते हैं
हट गए ठीक है मेरे पे तो मैं आके ठीक है
बात क्या है
नहीं तो वाला
नहीं टीवी पे नहीं